All right, let's do it. Trump's legal team is expected to request a special master to review the documents seized by the FBI. Let's get to some fucking real news for a little bit, because real news is really stupid, just like stupid news are. It's hard to distinguish what we're doing nowadays. Like, am I covering actual fucking news? Am I covering real news, or am I making jokes on Twitter? I don't know. It's just like the real world has gotten to a point where it is indistinguishable.
On former President Trump and the investigations that surround him. We're learning new details about the former president's efforts to reclaim materials seized during the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. Robert Costa is at the federal courthouse in West Palm Beach. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Jamie. This week will test former President Trump's legal team as he faces investigations on several fronts, but especially here in Florida, where his lawyers plan to ask a judge to appoint a neutral party to review and possibly return evidence collected from the FBI search at his Mar-a-Lago home.
How do you feel, Mr. Trump?
As the August 8th FBI search of Mar-a-Lago dominates the national political scene, CBS News has learned that some associates of the former president believe the Justice Department probe stems from a flurry of disorganized activity as he left office. Sources say Trump decided to bring around 24 boxes of material to his Florida home, instead of handing them over to the National Archives, a move that ultimately alarmed federal investigators, who worried the boxes contained classified information. According to the unsealed FBI search warrant and property receipt, agents seized 11 sets of classified documents, including 4 sets that were labeled top secret. It came months after a lawyer for Trump signed a document declaring all such material had been returned to the government.
This is very serious business. When documents have those markings, it generally indicates that the source of information is very sensitive.
The Justice Department has until Thursday to show a Florida judge its proposed redactions to the FBI warrant's underlying affidavit, which could now be released to...
I mean, part of the reason why they want this fucking affidavit to come out is specifically so they can say, look what they're hiding. Look at what they're hiding. Everybody's already like gearing up towards this being heavily redacted, because of course it's supposed to be heavily redacted. You don't often have the affidavits unsealed, especially when there's an ongoing active investigation, especially because that ongoing active investigation hinges on, you know, certain people cooperating without any sort of fear for their safety, right? And if you want an unsealed affidavit, you're going to literally, you're going to get everything. You're going to get what their strategy is. You're going to get what their investigation is. You're going to get who they've been able to turn within the organization. It never happens. But it's Donald Trump, and he gets what he fucking wants. And even if he doesn't get what he wants in this unsealed affidavit that is going to be, once again, heavily fucking redacted, and that's why everyone in the media has been talking about how it's going to look like one black bar, basically. They're going to run out of fucking ink time and time again. Then they're going to turn around and show those pages on Fox News. Get ready for that. They're going to show all those pages on Fox News and be like, what are they hiding? Because most people don't understand what a fucking affidavit looks like and what the normal process is. And conservatives always know how fucking stupid and how little their audience knows, because their job in conservative media, or in media in general, is to educate them. But if you don't want to educate someone, if you just want to propagandize, you can use that lack of knowledge to your advantage and and basically cut propaganda against it. So that's what they're looking for. They're waiting for the redacted affidavit to come out so they can be like, they're hiding everything. What are they hiding? Transparency in government was something that liberals were actually on board with. I'm Tucker Carlson, and the FBI has gone full-blown woke. What about using the affidavit to find the names of the leakers and sources so they can name them publicly and unleash the mob on them through Fox like they did with the judge? See edited pics of the judge, death threats to FBI agents, attacks on the FBI. Yes, that is what they're going to try to do. That's the primary reason for why they want to fucking leak the affidavit, or at least figure out what is in the affidavit. The second reason, and that is, by the way, tampering with an ongoing investigation. Okay? That's what they're doing. They are tampering with an ongoing investigation. That's their job. Their job is to obstruct justice from happening. That's what their goal is.
to the public amid calls for transparency.
How did the FBI justify raiding Mar-a-Lago and spending 9 hours in the president's house? The affidavit's going to have them tell publicly now what they told the court they were going to go find.
Meanwhile, in the investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia, Senator Lindsey Graham's scheduled testimony before a grand jury this week is temporarily on hold. A federal appeals court is allowing more time to determine if any part of the Constitution protects a U.S. senator from being questioned about legislative work.
There is no doubt in my mind.
Bro, I love that. Like, if you're a fucking U.S. senator or if you're a U.S. representative, okay, you can say whatever the fuck you want to other members of your party. You can literally conspire to murder people, I guess. And it doesn't matter because you could just say it's legislative work. You know what I mean? And that's so fucking dumb. It's so stupid. It's so incredibly fucking stupid.
That the most risk to the former president is.
Gideon tried to fucking FaceTime me while I'm live. I said, bro, I'm live right now. What are you doing? He said, oh shit, my beat. Tell chat I said spam W stream. It's official, boys. We're a W stream now. Done. It's over. We're a W stream. This is, yeah. Step aside, Aiden. This is the new W stream in town. You feel me?
In fact, the Georgia investigation.
What's on?
Despite these investigations, former President Trump's advisors tell CBS News he feels emboldened about a possible 2024 presidential campaign. And another possible 2024 contender, former VP Mike Pence, was in Iowa over the weekend. He told the Associated Press that he did not bring classified material with him when he left the White House. Jamie?
Yeah, many of his aides saying he was meticulous about that. Bob, I'm wondering what more we've learned about Senator Graham's fight against having to testify before that Georgia grand jury.
We're keeping a close eye on that Georgia grand jury. Remember, it was just a week ago that former New York mayor and Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani spent hours before that grand jury. But they're now trying to figure out through a judge in federal courts whether a U.S. senator can testify about the full scope of his work in this sort of setting.
That's interesting. We've also heard reports that former President Trump has surveillance video of the FBI search at Mar-a-Lago. You know, Bob, what do you know about that right now?
Over the weekend, we were told that the former president and his lawyers are looking through that surveillance footage from Mar-a-Lago, wondering how to use it, if to release it to the public or use it as some part of political campaign, as he expresses his grievances over the FBI search. No decisions have been made at this moment, but there is real concern on the FBI and DOJ side about this, since threats against agents since the search have spiked.
Yeah, that is a concern. Bob, thank you.
Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. As we wait for...
This is going to be fucking awesome. What you're about to watch is My Hero, okay? My Hero Academia, the man, the myth, the legend, Dan Crenshaw, you know, friend of the show, Dan Crenshaw, get fucking dismantled by someone like Jake Tapper, okay? Well, not really, but he just like dismantles himself basically live on TV. It's pretty fucking awesome. Let's take a look at what he has to do because, you know, Dan Crenshaw, friend of the show, is famous for crying on TV about my takes on his eye and numerous other things about 9/11 that I said. But he's also famous for being a rhino, a Republican in name only. He's like the moderate Republican. He tries to, do that delicate dance all the time. Where he will try to come across like a guy who tells the Republicans, no, you can't have these things that you want to have. Like, no, I will not be sponsoring a bill that says we're going to kill every Democratic legislator. And then his fans will boo him and they'll go, fuck you, you're fucking rhino, you fucking piece of shit. He famously came out against, originally was in support of red flag laws and then came out against them. But, a lot of people got mad at him. Yes, he's a graduate of Tufts and also Harvard. Got an eye for what pisses off the voter. I agree. He does. He doesn't have very good foresight. Doesn't really have very good hindsight either. You know? So let's take a look.
Information on the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. Republican lawmakers are largely standing by former President Trump. And joining us now to discuss is Texas Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Jake, thanks for having me. It's a slow news week. I don't know what you want to talk about.
So there's a lot to get to. Let's start with the fact that you're a former Navy SEAL. You have depended on the intelligence community in very real, tangible ways to protect your life and those of your brothers. As someone who understands just how...
you've depended on the intelligence community to conduct JSOC operations like, I don't know, finding new trafficking routes into Europe for the Afghan poppy that you were, helping produce opium with. You know, you had a lot of that, Dan. You relied on intelligence to make sure that operation was successful. Care to give us more insight on that? No, of course, Jake Tapper would never say that.
Precious intelligence can be. I'm wondering if it bothers you that there was apparently classified information in an unsecure location.
Bro, I swear to God, Jake Tapper with a veteran is the same level of dick riding as Aiden Ross with Andrew Tate, okay? Veterans to Jake Tapper is the same as Andrew Tate is to Aiden Ross. Like, we often joke about, like, oh, yeah, Aiden Ross, like, you're dick riding, you're dick eating, you're dick riding, blah, blah, blah. But, like, nobody ever really sees it from the same perspective. But goddamn, does Jake Tapper love riding, dude. He fucking loves it.
At Mar-a-Lago, we know that one box was labeled TS-SCI, that's top secret, sensitive, compartmented information.
Yeah. Well, look, you know me, Jake, and I'm not one to withhold criticism and even make my own side mad. I want to get to the truth. But I will be honest with you here. It's hard to justify what the Department of Justice did here, in my opinion. And here's why. Here's what it really
I wonder why. This is the reasonable Republican take, by the way.
Boils down to. It's not a question that it's bad to have classified material in a non-SCIF environment, right? So that's a non-secret compartmentalized infrastructure there. That's wrong. But there's ways to mitigate that. There's ways to resolve that issue. And I still haven't seen any evidence that...
Wait, what do you mean? Okay, there were, like, I don't know, asking politely. They did that already. That didn't happen. Sending a subpoena. They did that, and that didn't happen. So what more could they have done in this situation? I mean, they did say pretty pink, please. And the Trump team just took advantage of that. They literally fucking personally sent back some of the materials, but refused to send some of them. For what reason? What are they supposed to do?
That Trump was even asked to give these documents back. He's been cooperating with them on these issues for a while now, for months. And so why take it to this extreme extent? And I think that's why you're seeing so much backlash from Republicans. You're seeing everyone coalesce. It doesn't matter what side of the issue they're on with Trump. You've seen a lot coalesce around this one because it does seem unjust. And there does seem to be a long history of loss of credibility at the Department of Justice at the hands of Democrats. And I think people are rightfully frustrated about that.
I think first of all, I think there are a lot of Hillary Clinton folks who would argue that, they don't think that they were treated well by the FBI.
Absolutely. So it just gets to the point, though.
So, but what I'll say is, and look, you're right, there's a lot we don't know. So I can't defend anything, but I will say,
I don't get it. Like, it's like a light conservative talking to an even more conservative light conservative. And of course, like, this conversation is unproductive. Just fucking ask why he said those things when they did that.
It did go to a magistrate judge. The FBI director signed off on it. He was appointed by Trump. There was concern, according to the documents that have been released, about whether or not information would be destroyed. So, look, a healthy skepticism about law enforcement and FBI raids is always fine and welcome as far as I'm concerned. But isn't law enforcement innocent until proven guilty as well?
Yeah, again, people signing off on it doesn't mean that it has precedent. It doesn't. This is a very unprecedented measure. And you know that when you're going after an ex-president who may run again, that this is automatically political. You cannot separate the legal aspects of.
Yeah, no, totally. Like Ralph Shorty, famously, okay, the Oklahoma State legislator Ralph Shorty, when he was caught having sex with a trafficked minor boy. Okay, 17 years old. That was investigating him was just purely political. I mean, that's just political. It's just so political. It's, of course, inherently political when any kind of law enforcement agency goes after a politician. It's just politics, you know? It's just political. You know what's not political? The top of the hour ad break is not political. It just impacts every single person unless you are a subscriber. Okay? If you're a subscriber, then you've subscribed for $5, or you're a subscriber that is subscribed for free with a Twitch Prime. You use your Twitch Prime here on your favorite broadcaster, and all of a sudden you don't see the fucking top of the hour ad break. Okay? Now, there's another way. Maybe you're lucky and you get that immunity through a gifted sub. You know, some people send gifted subs to the community. You might be one of those lucky people. If you're not, though, you got to make your own luck. Here's the 1 minute ad break now.
This from the political aspects of it. You can't. And it doesn't seem to me like they've acted responsibly as a result of that. And look, again, why not just ask him? Why not just ask him?
But they did!
Negotiating and trying.
But they did! Jake Tapper! You have a slam dunk. You look for slam dunks. If you're in the media, your job is to get these fucking slam dunks. This motherfucker is blindsided right now, okay? You've entered his blind spot. He has a blind spot for Donald Trump, okay? And he's just revealing a perfect opportunity for you to strike, okay? It's so clear. This would be a clip that runs over in eternity if you turned around right now and blindsided him with a question like, well, that's interesting, or counter, like, well, that's really interesting you say that, because they did do that with a subpoena.
Trying to get the information for the Justice Department.
And he cooperated.
But he didn't turn over. They'd been negotiating and trying to get the information from him, and
he cooperated.
But he didn't turn over boxes and boxes of material, as far as the Justice Department says.
But he's been cooperating, and I think he's on the record saying, whatever you need from us, just ask. It's great to see you guys. I mean, it was a very friendly environment.
But his lawyer said they didn't have any more classified information, and the Justice Department said, yes, you do, and they went and got it. And the only reason we know about the raid was because Donald Trump announced it.
Right. Well, I think we would have figured it out even if he hadn't. But look, yes, the lawyers did sign that document. That they have nothing left. Now, that's either a huge mistake on part of the lawyers, but even if it was nefarious, again, why not say, hey, we don't believe you?
Wait. He's just trying to offload that now over to the lawyers. Oh, the lawyers made a mistake, an innocent mistake. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah.
Now let us come back and let's go through these boxes again. There's tons of boxes here. I mean, do any of us really believe that Donald Trump is like reading his nuclear secrets on his bedside at night? Like, there's an intent question here.
Bro, he is flailing. He is fucking flailing right now. This is a horrible way to try and defend him.
And if you're going to use the espionage,
come on. I mean, does anyone believe that he took the classified nuclear materials to read it by his bedside? Like, motherfucker, we don't even know if he knows how to read. Okay. It doesn't matter what his fucking intent is. Like, literally, the rule of law doesn't even, the rule of law itself doesn't even care about that. So, Jake Tapper, again, hook him with the left.
Act. And if you're gonna pursue this criminal investigation, you have to prove intent. And that doesn't seem likely in this case, right? Especially when this person has been cooperating extensively in a very friendly manner. And so that's why a lot of us...
Bro, what do you mean he was cooperating in a friendly manner? Did he or did he not refuse to fucking give back some of the classified materials that he was subpoenaed? Doesn't matter how friendly he was. You know what I mean? Oh, Your Honor. That's so funny. This is such a fucking awesome defense, dude. Your Honor, I know I tried to rob the bank, okay, with a gun. But when the detectives came over to my house and asked what I was doing on that day, I was very friendly with them. So obviously that means that, I'm innocent. I was friendly with the law enforcement.
Jump to the conclusion that this was highly politicized because it was so unnecessary to do an armed raid to resolve this particular issue that could have been resolved very easily otherwise.
I think a lot of Justice Department people would take issue with your descriptions, but I'm not here to defend the Justice Department. I do want to note that your criticism is fairly measured. I can't say the same about every Republican.
Oh my God, dude. Oh, Jake Tapper with a guac 5000. Of course, dude. You're so measured and so brilliant in the way that you're defending Donald Trump. Like, there is no measured or brilliant defense here, dude. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, what the fuck are you saying? You literally hit him with a fucking left hook. You blindsided him, and now you're turning around and be like, but you're actually doing a really good job defending Donald Trump. It's not measured at all. Once again, aesthetic-focused liberals, oh my God, all they care about is someone using the right terms, and that's it.
In Congress, and you've been willing to criticize them, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of your favorites, who called to defund the FBI after the Mar-a-Lago raid. Federal prosecutors have since charged a Pennsylvania man this week after he wrote on social media, if you work for the FBI, you deserve to die. Obviously, that armed man tried to enter the FBI office in Ohio. There's a Republican congressional candidate, Carl Palladino, endorsed by Elise Stefanik, who said that Attorney General Merrick Garland should probably be executed. I mean, that rhetoric, I'm sure, bothers you.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. And it makes us seem like extremist Democrats, right? And so Marjorie...
Bro, what the fuck? That's crazy. Was Dan Crenshaw at CPAC? Because if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, but this is what happened at the CPAC.
Are all ladies and gentlemen, we are all domestic terrorists. Please welcome founder of the ladies and gentlemen, we are all domestic terrorists.
That's so weird. I love that the underline, the line comes under domestic too.
Domestic terrorists.
And, like, it stops at domestic. Huh.
Please welcome founder of the ladies and gentlemen.
I love the underlying notion here from Jake Tapper is that, like, because Dan Crenshaw is not literally calling for the murder of FBI agents, that he is the reasonable Republican. Like, you've been very measured in your response to Donald Trump taking and refusing to give back classified materials, some of which might be actually like nuclear materials, top secret classification status. You've been really measured because you haven't called for the execution of the Attorney General Merrick Garland. What do you have to say to that? It's like, that's the bar, really? Like, because he's not trying to actively kill FBI agents? That's cool, I guess.
And AOC can go join the Defund the Law Enforcement Club if they want. 99% of Republicans are not on that train. What we want is accountability. We want transparency. And the criticisms that we're leveling against the FBI and DOJ are fully warranted. It is not those criticisms that lead to a crazy person attacking an FBI.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about people who are like saying kill FBI or...
No, it's completely wrong, right? It's completely wrong, but that's not where 99% of Republicans are at, of course. And I'll tell you what frustrates Republicans when you hear that kind of criticism is, last time I checked, you had even the White House spokesperson saying, yes, people should be out protesting in front of Supreme Court justices' homes, even after Brett Kavanaugh had his life threatened by this. And so, there's a double standard that frustrates the Republicans quite a bit when we talk about these.
I don't know why he's just like riding the Republican Party so much, because like the Republicans don't want you, man. Little bro, the Republicans don't love you, little bro. Stop it.
These issues, again, doesn't make it right.
Also, protesting outside of the fucking homes of Supreme Court justices is a little bit different than like entering the fucking Cincinnati FBI field office with a nail gun and an arsenal with the specific interest of murdering FBI agents. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
I like to be on the side of it's all bad no matter who's saying it.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, so Democrats can protest, but we can't try to kill a couple FBI agents? Double standard alert. Jake, I like to call that a double standard. And the hypocrisy of this issue really frustrates us in the Republican Party. Love that.
Let me ask you another question that's important for all Americans, but especially in Texas. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, says Texas has now bused nearly 1,000 undocumented migrants from the border in Texas to New York City in the last 2 weeks. There's an immigration researcher at Syracuse who said that Abbott is doing these migrants, these undocumented individuals, a favor and, quote, practically ensuring that these migrants will be allowed to stay in the country because immigration judges in New York tend to be more lenient than immigration judges in Texas. What do you make of this stunt, this move, whatever you want to call it, by Abbott?
Well, look, what he's doing is he's sending a message. There's no secret there, right? This isn't a policy move. This is a move of desperation to get someone to pay attention to what we're dealing with in Texas. Which is why I support it. Again, so will they have a more likelihood of staying in the country? Look, basically everyone who's crossing our border has that same likelihood. There's almost 2 million, I think we're at apprehensions just this year. That's an unprecedented number. Huge amount of those will stay in the country because the backlogs in our system are so severe that that's going to happen anyway. And when we're talking about the New York and D.C. busing, we're talking about
Yeah, by the way, if you're wondering, like, with the CNN rhetoric, this is really important. CNN went through a bunch of fucking firings. CNN's new CEO, Chris Licht, has been attending to an audience neglected by the network for the past several years. Republican lawmakers. The network boss camped out in mid-July in a room of the first floor of the Senate side of the Capitol, S-120, where he asked GOP lawmakers to come and talk with him privately. That arrangement avoided alerting the reporters who stalked the halls of the Capitol, sources said, and accommodated Republican lawmakers who preferred not to be seen hobnobbing with him. Licht's message, according to one of the lawmakers who sat down with him, as well as several sources briefed on the exchanges, was, "We want to win back your trust." CNN literally looked at the situation, looked at its fucking ratings, looked at the Fox News ratings and went, you know what's the problem here? We're too fucking liberal. We're not conservative enough. So what we should do is become more conservative, which is fucking awesome. I mean, fuck this country, okay? Fuck this country. Fuck the media. I'm glad that they're doing it. Yeah, suck on that fascist cock, you pieces of shit. Have fun with it. At least they'll make better content, hopefully. Okay? Wonderful. Wonderful, dude. Absolutely fucking wonderful stuff, okay? Yeah, it's great. But your numbers go up too, damn. Yeah, you know me, man. I love, GOP's Biden equals open border rhetoric doesn't even work. The border is so open that we're doing 3 times many drug seizures at it, which is crippling your community. That's the wild thing, is that, like, they constantly point to, like, immigrant apprehensions and say, look, this is an open border policy. It's like, no, dumbass, you're showcasing that the border is not open. If it was open, there would be no apprehensions like this. Anyway, let's continue.
A few thousand immigrants. That's what we deal with on a daily basis in South Texas. So look, what he's doing, I think, is out of desperation, and it's highly necessary because somebody has to solve this problem. This is an infringement on our sovereignty. It's an infringement on our rule of law. And you know what? It's unfair and it's immoral to the millions upon millions of good, law-abiding immigrants or asylum seekers around the world that have no chance of getting into our system because of the backlog that people are creating because they're geographically close to the United States and they can just walk across. It's not fair.
I want to talk to you about Afghanistan,
it's not even
too,
true.
Because
those two things are completely removed from one another. Like, there are separate processes that he's referencing right now and using it against one another. That's literally not true. Jesus Christ.
We're in this month, it's a 1-year anniversary since the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. There was a lot of concern about the fallout for Homeland Security and for U.S. intelligence with the withdrawal. Now, the Biden administration has since said that the U.S. intelligence agencies under Biden, that al-Qaeda has not reconstituted. Obviously, the Biden administration, working with the Pentagon and intelligence partners, were able to take out al-Zawahiri. How great is the direct terrorist threat, given the withdrawal? From a 30,000-foot view, it doesn't look bad, given the fact that al-Qaeda has not reconstituted, and al-Qaeda's number 1 was taken out.
Depends on who you talk to. I mean, General Petraeus was just on the record this week talking about how, look, it's ISIS that is really the threat and really has the resources right now. The other thing that's clear from the Zawahiri strike, which fully support, I'm glad the administration did that, but here's what's clear about that. The Taliban has been harboring him. Right? This was in a wealthy neighborhood in Kabul. Taliban's been going door to door all over Afghanistan for a year now. They knew where he was. They knew where they were harboring him. It was part of the reason that we believed that the Taliban were never going to adhere to the deal that even the Trump administration made. Okay, so what frustrates me about Afghanistan, is generally speaking, is that we didn't learn any lessons in the last 20 years, and our politicians and our leaders.
I mean, he said literally these sorts of things 2 years ago, and in 29, or not 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. In 2019, on the Joe Rogan Experience on 8/20, And that's why I unironically fucking popped off and said what I said, which, you know, I do not have any, I do not regret at all, because I was right back then and I'm still right for saying exactly what I fucking said. I will not repeat it. I did miss the anniversary yesterday, but it was more of a tactical retreat from being live on the anniversary, so I could, you know, make sure that I didn't pop off in this way.
Never told the American people the complicated truth about what's happening there. It's not this normal war where it's us, say, versus Saddam Hussein, and there's a uniformed opposition versus us. And then there's a clear winner and loser at the end when you sign a treaty. That's not what this ever was, right? You were attacked, and then you either took revenge or you sought to prevent it from ever happening again. And our policy was to seek to prevent it from ever happening again, and that requires resources, requires building up capacity with our allies, and that's complicated and it's messy. And some people call it nation building, you can call it capacity building, stability operations, whatever you call it, it's tough. And over 20 years, we sort of figured out that right balance, where we're actually investing very minimal resources. We hadn't lost a single soldier in over a year. We had very few troops there, and we had a strategic Bagram air base, not just for counterterrorism operations, but it's close to Pakistan, it's close to Iran, it's close to China.
Yeah.
And then we just give it up. Why? Because of these emotional cries to, you know, bring the troops home, no more endless wars. And instead of addressing the complexities of this issue and understanding what national defense is, which does involve forward deployed presence, a connection with allies, building capacity with them so that I'm not the guy losing my eye to do it. And we lost it all.
I'm like white knuckling through this, bro. It is so hard for me not to say something. I'm not saying anything about it, okay? I'm not. I've grown, okay? I've learned. I'm just not going to say it. I'm not going to say anything, okay? He doesn't want to be the guy who loses his eye, you know? Yeah. Freak accident.
Here, let's start with that new NBC News national poll, which shows 57% of Americans believe the investigations into Donald Trump should continue. 40% say they should stop. When it comes to top issues facing the country, threats to democracy have overtaken the cost of living. The poll also shows a very dissatisfied electorate, tracking with other numbers we've seen for several months now. 74%.
Top issues are threats to democracy, cost of living, jobs in the economy, immigration and the border, climate change, guns, abortion, and crime.
Percent of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. A record 58% believe America's best days are behind it. And 68% believe the United States currently is in a recession. Republicans have a slight 2-point edge when it comes to which party voters want to control Congress, though that's in the margin of error, a tie game there. But Democrats have significantly closed the enthusiasm gap. 68% of Republicans express a high level of interest in the upcoming election versus 66% for Democrats in May. That gap was 8 points. Let's go straight to NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki at the big board and the co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen, with us.
One of my favorite things in this process has been the Mitch McConnell admission that came out this past week of just basically saying, like, we got no shot at the Senate now. Y'all done did it, which is pretty cool. See, Trump is using the raid to boost the midterm. Yeah, except like once again, I think that all the Democrats need to hammer further is the horrifying things that are happening to women in red states that want to get an abortion and can't, or do end up getting an abortion and are now being like criminally charged in order to push for more participation from the voting population. Yeah, Dr. Oz is a huge throw by Republicans too. I mean, that's a hard one to salvage
As well. So, Steve, take us through some of these numbers and what jumped out to you.
Yeah, Willie. I mean, everything that we're trying to figure out, it seems, in the last month or so is something changing here in terms of the midterm climate towards the Democrats' benefit, away from the Republicans. Of course, the usual trend has been the out-of-power party. The opposition party does really well in midterm elections. Earlier this year, just about all the numbers were pointing in that direction. The question is, are those numbers changing at all? So let's take you through some of the big ones. You showed a few, and let's try to put some context on this. First, the president's approval rating. I mean, typically, this tells you a lot about where things are going in a midterm election. The only two times in the modern era when a president's party has not lost seats in Congress in a midterm, the president's approval rating was sky high on Election Day. That would have been 2002 with George W. Bush. He was in the high 60s. That would have been 1998 with Bill Clinton. He was in the high 60s. You see Joe Biden is sitting at a 42% approval rating, 55% disapproval. The last time our poll, the NBC poll, was in the field, it's been a little while, but back in May, it basically looked exactly the same. Start of the summer, end of the summer here. Biden's approval rating in our poll basically flat. You mentioned also that question of the generic ballot. In our polling, again, comparing late spring, start of the summer with right now, really hasn't budged that much statistically here. Republicans ahead by 2 now. Had been a tie in May. This is interesting when you look at this one historically. Think back now, over the last decade or so, there have been 2 big Republican midterm years. That was 2010. That was that huge sweep when they won 63 seats. And that was 2014, Barack Obama's second midterm. It was a big one for Republicans. At this same point in 2010, Republicans were +6 on the generic ballot. It was clear by the end of summer 2010 where things were going in that midterm election and that Republicans were headed towards a very strong performance. I think what's interesting is if you look at 2014, which was the other big Republican midterm year, at this point, Republicans actually trailed in 2014 on the generic ballot by an average of 1.4 points. I think it's worth keeping in mind. If you think back to 2014, there was talk until very late in that midterm cycle that maybe Democrats were actually going to buck history and have a good year. One of the things was that generic ballot was favorable to the Democrats until deep into the midterm campaign. So if you're a Republican, you hope that this is a repeat of 2014. If you're a Democrat, you hope you could just kind of keep it where it is right now in terms of that generic ballot. And then you mentioned the enthusiasm as well. I mean, look at this change. I do think this is notable here. If you, we went one screen too far there. If you went back to March, this is what I'm saying. Earlier in the year, the numbers there were consistent with a big Republican midterm advantage. The Republicans had a 17-point advantage when it came to their voters saying they had the highest level of enthusiasm coming into the midterms. In May, it was down to 8. Now that gap is down to 2 points. And if you think back to just 4 years ago, the big blue wave of 2018, when Democrats gained 40 seats in the House during Trump's presidency, on this same question, Democrats were leading by 2 or 3 points. So now it's a Republican advantage of 2 points in our poll. But the movement there, it started before that Roe decision, but it's continued since that Roe decision. The movement there in the Democrats' direction, I think that one is interesting. And then you put this up here. The top issues, well, people say the top issues facing the country are, it is interesting, threats to democracy makes #1 overall. If you add together cost of living and jobs and the economy together, they would come to 30%. If you merge those two as sort of similar, that would be #1, although that combined total is down a little bit from our last poll. But what I thought was really interesting was just to look at the partisan breakdown. How do the two parties look at the top issues facing the country? And you see some pretty stark differences on this one. For instance, you take the question of abortion, particularly after the Supreme Court decision, 15% of
climate change, 9%, abortion, 8%. We're not going to make it, boys. You know what I understand from this? When Democrats ride for an issue, they don't ride for an issue in the same way that Republicans do. Look, the #1 issue for the Republicans is immigration and border. 30%. The #1, when something is a problem for Democrats, they're like, 13%, 15%, and Republicans give 3%. When something is not an issue for Democrats, they give 2%, but Republicans give 30%.
Democrats rate that as the most important issue facing the country, 5 times greater than the Republican number. Only 3% of Republicans rate abortion as the top issue facing the country. And then how about this for an imbalance? Immigration and the border, 2% of Democrats cite that as the top issue in the country. 15 times as many Republicans, 30%, rate that as the top issue facing the country. So there are some stark divides here between how each party universe looks at the big problems facing the country heading into this midterm.
Which is wonderful, because now CNN's like, we need to cut more racial agitprop about like immigrants doing murders or something to greatly overemphasize and make it seem like it's a genuine problem. So thank God.
That's so much fascinating information in these polls. And Mike Allen, if you just look at that screen that Steve has up right now, he's right. If you combine the numbers 2 and 3, those are the economy. That's 30%. So that really is number one. But the fact that 21% of Americans now say threats to democracy are one of the most important issues, or the most important issue facing the country, does show the impact of the January 6th committee's select hearings. And perhaps,
who the fuck is being polled? Like just MSNBC watchers or something? Like, that's crazy to me. I don't know. I don't understand it.
perhaps even now, the FBI investigation looking into Donald Trump, and this general theme, this general tone that we've been living with for a couple of years now about really the foundation of what our country is built on.
Willie, I think that's a great point. There have been a lot of debate about the January 6th hearings. They've definitely over-delivered in the content and the drama that they have come up with between their live witnesses and their network documentary style production. But this is a sign that is, people are like, oh, was that only inside the Beltway? No, this is a sign that it's seeping out. And Willie, I can tell you, I've been talking behind the scenes with the committee, and for their hearings when they resume in September, they plan more blockbusters. They're thinking of it as season 2, and they are not going to have a sophomore slump in their season 2. They're definitely teeing it up. In fact, Liz Cheney.
Or they're literally... Brother, don't you feel like you're trivializing the genuine threat to democracy that Donald Trump poses when you cover it like it's a fucking Netflix series that's coming back for a season 2? I'm done. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe they know better than I do. They probably do.
Cheney, vice chairman of the committee, even teasing the idea that they might try to call President Trump. And yesterday pressing Vice President Pence to deliver on his statement last week that he was considering, or that he would consider appearing. She actually said he has an obligation to do that. So that's a big fight we're going to see in the next couple of weeks. Willie, zooming back to this poll, and it's a great NBC News poll, 1,000 registered voters, 3-point margin of error. There's 2 findings here that really leapt out at me, and they're both very clever questions. The first one that we saw in that graphic earlier, when we saw that only 1/3 of Americans think the best is yet to come. I have not seen this question before. Is America's best days behind us? And I guess it's been asked because Mark Murray's story said that this is a record number of people said that it was that the best days are behind us. And then a second finding, Willie, that we're featuring in Axios AM this morning was also a very clever question that NBC has asked over time, and that is about President Trump. They asked Republicans, are you more aligned with President Trump or the Republican Party itself? And this is where we're starting to see an early sign of possible data showing an FBI bump for President Trump among Republicans. He could still have, this could be completely moot.
You guys are on crack if they don't think that The Republican Party is aligned with Trump. They have to be on crack.
He's, of course, being investigated for possible violations of the Espionage Act, so your poll numbers don't make much difference to you in that situation. But we're seeing a recovery in this NBC poll from May until now in the number of Republicans who think that they are aligned with President Trump as opposed to the Republican Party. Why that matters? This is Trump dialing in to the idea among Republicans. The more that they are against Trump, the more Republicans say they're for him.
This is who we are, bro. They're right. All right, primaries.
Now to the latest in the primary showdown as voters gear up to head to the polls tomorrow in many states. Our congressional correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest on the key races, especially in the battleground state of Florida. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, Robin, good morning. Yes, the last major primary day ahead of the midterm elections kicks off in just 24 hours, and it will be a consequential day for Democrats. So let's start in the critical battleground state of Florida. Tuesday's primary will determine which Democratic candidate will face off against the state's governor, Ron DeSantis, in November. It's a two-person race between the state's Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Fried, and Representative Charlie Crist, who was once the Republican governor of that state. Now he's vying for the Democratic nomination. And in the race for Senate, Tuesday's primary is also expected to solidify a highly watched matchup between Republican Senator Marco Rubio and Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings, with control of the Senate on the line. In New York, there is a slate of contentious and messy Democratic primaries. The congressional maps were redrawn earlier this year, and now you have two top-ranking Democrats, House Committee Chairs Jerry Nadler and Carolyn Maloney. They are facing off.
Funny.
I can tell you that most Democrats have stayed out of this race. They are watching to see how it all shakes out. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has endorsed Nadler. Michael.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Let them fight.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking.
That one's going to be great.